time, think it's my big dog, walking big talk, young veteran, living legend, bet I'm better than them. This is my ship, I'ma jack it like Letterman. Y'all better not let them in, they gon' rotate this, so I keep the pedaling. Started a chain, the cycle is heaven sent. This is from God, but I'm not your reverend, not in the pulpit. I'm a big bull in this element, yeah. Said you gon' pull up, then settle it, yeah. I've been married to this hustle, this is my ring, watch out step in it, yeah. And I ain't even got a yard, but I'ma get it here. Watch out touchdown, pulling plans out the clutch. Everybody getting crushed, the cut down is for us now. Have to work something, cause I had nothing in my pocket, yeah, I did all that. Big plans, partners trying to make profits, yeah, I did all that. Work, sweat, and tears breaking, even no wins, yeah, I did all that. Had to make it happen, putting hours in my practice, I did all that, yeah. I can't take no loss, yeah, I don't even know what it costs, I hit the ground, then it go off, yeah, hit the ground, then it go off, yeah. I can't take no loss, yeah, I don't even know what it costs, yeah, I hit the ground, then it go off, yeah, hit the ground, then it go off, yeah, yeah, run it, ooh, I really feel it's my time, think it's my year, yeah, yeah, I really feel it's my time, think it's my year, yeah, yeah, I really feel it's my time, think it's my year, yeah, yeah, I really feel it's my time, think it's my, yeah. Run it, I can't take no loss, I don't even know what it costs, I hit the ground, then it go off, yeah, hit the ground, then it go off, yeah, I can't take no loss, I don't even know what it costs, yeah, I hit the ground, then it go off, yeah, hit the ground, then it go off, yeah, yeah, run it, ooh, I really feel it's my time, think it's my year, yeah, yeah, I really feel it's my time, think it's my year, yeah, yeah, I really feel it's my time, think it's my year, yeah, yeah, I really feel it's my time, think it's my pen ready. Used to hold myself back, my self-esteem damn bad. I gotta keep on chugging. Ran through everything in front of me. Might smoke bed in heaven. Got a whole agenda. Can't aspire to get ahead, so bump that. It's no surrender. Got a dollar flipped up. I'm trying to get it in FT to get them when they're hand and crypto. Learn how to fix that. I don't really hold out of books, but I'ma learn how to fix that. Some opportunities that never come unless you paying attention. So no, I can't miss that. Moving. MVP, I got the record. I might have to prove something. Big jumper worthy. They gon' have to retire my jersey early. Whole crew coming. Had to work something, cause I had nothing in my pocket. Yeah, I did all that. Big plans. Partners trying to make profits, yeah, I did all that. Work, sweat, and tears breaking, even no wins, yeah, I did all that. Had to make it happen, putting hours in my practice, I did all that. Yeah, I can't take no loss, yeah, I don't even know.
All right, Jason, I got you in, and we are ready to go as soon as actually, I think I screwed this one up. We are already live. All right, guys, welcome back to the Angry Man Podcast with Jason and Greg. And he got me off script because he was around here struggling with his technology, and I'm all off script. Thank goodness I didn't say anything too mean to Jason before we started the show. All right, so Jay, I want to start off very quickly by making sure that everybody is aware that we have Jake Donovan in the building from the boxing scene. Welcome back, Jake. Appreciate you for coming back on the platform. And then we want to quickly give some shout outs to Rock Dog Interactive, Black Father Figures, and Nadaj Vodka. Those are the people that support us. Nadaj Vodka, you can go get that at www.nadajvodka.com. I love that. That's one of my favorite vodkas. I think it's my favorite vodka because they support the channel so much. And it tastes great, guys, with anything. So make sure you go check it out. So, Jay, I'm going to let you start it off, man. There's a number of topics that we want to cover, and we definitely want to give Jake the opportunity to comment on some of this stuff. So why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
Yeah, well, there's a few things happened over the week. As far as, like, Fury. I mean, Fury's been like the baby of the WBC right now. WBC just doesn't make any moves on certain fighters. Fury being one of them, Maul being another. Should Fury be stripped of this title?
You know, I've had a thought on this. So I'm trying to forget about Fury because I'm not paying any attention to this fight. I've said it before. I'm glad Ngannou's getting his payday. Do what you got to do to get paid. Beyond that, I could not care less about that fight. Now, if the WBC wants to be the grown-up in the room, we've been talking literally all year about Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua fight. The easiest way, like now they're talking, they don't know if that fight's going to happen. The easiest way to move that along, they're the top two contenders in the WBC, order an eliminator. Order them to fight each other. no matter the stakes, whether Fury has to give up his belt or whatever, that can get this division moving. Because otherwise, Fury's going to be marching into 2024, still no mandatory. Because WBC, they tried to order Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz. That didn't happen. Andy Ruiz tried to negotiate with Tyson Fury. That fight didn't happen. Deontay, at this moment, I'd like to believe he cannot go straight into a fourth fight with Tyson Fury, having only fought one round between his third fight and present day. So the WBC has the opportunity to make a move. Like if they can somehow help facilitate, something where Joshua and Wilder are more incentivized to fight each other next and drop whatever is going on, and I have to believe it has to do with money, but maybe that'll get Fury's career going. Maybe now the WBC has a reason. Okay, well, Fury is going to be doing the sideshow stuff. He's already talking about he couldn't care less about unifying the titles. Usyk, the IBF can go ahead and order Usyk to go fight Filipergovic, which has been on hold because they believe the Undisputed is still in play. And now the WBC can decide, okay, well, Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder could either fight for an eliminator, or we just strip Tyson Fury, let him do whatever the hell he wants. They can go fight for the vacant title. There are things that can be done in the sport that the people in the sport just refuse to do. So we're just going to be stuck in this holding pattern until the grown-up shows up.
Yeah, it feels that way. Jake, the division seems to be stalled out. Tyson Fury, in my personal opinion, feels like he's not even interested in being a fighter anymore. Feels like he's in semi-retirement. He's kind of doing what Floyd did, but he's not actually retired. So I agree with you. An adult needs to come into the room and take charge of that situation.
Yep.
Big time.
Jake, I wanted to get the opportunity, and at some point we're going to go to the chat and get some questions from those folks as well. But Haney versus Prograis. Now, it sounded like to us that this fight was official. It's going to happen in San Francisco. Now, I don't know what the date was, but supposedly San Francisco. We heard, or at least we saw, Devin Haney repost, but Regis Prograis acted as though he still hasn't actually signed anything. So what do you know about this fight?
So as far as I know, it's pretty much similar to where it was when it was quote unquote leaked that the fight was going to happen October 28th. It's one side driving a narrative and the other side just kind of being stuck, playing the waiting game, waiting for everything to get finalized. So as far as I know, this is a target date. It's either December 2nd or December 9th. It seems like December 9th might be more likely, but it's targeted for December at I believe the Chase Center where the Golden State Warriors play. So that is targeted. It is not finalized. When we saw all that come out, I think it was the Boxing Voice, they came out with that exclusive or whatever. Now look, when ESPN broke the news, they have a very cozy relationship with the Haney family. The Boxing Voice has a very cozy relationship with the Haney family. I'm not trying to speak ill of Bill and Devin. They've always been very, very good to me. I have all the respect in the world. My favorite father-son combination in the sport. But they know what they're doing, letting this, these little tidbit, these little breadcrumbs, kind of make its way to the media. So the fight, to my knowledge, is still not finalized yet. They're trying to get all the deals, all the ducks in a row. There's a lot going on because I know PBC has at least 2 pay-per-views coming up after Canelo Charlo, possibly 3. Now, if Haney Prograis goes on December 9th, granted, I don't think PBC is going to be scared about going up against that fight because I love the fight. I think it's going to be a disaster as a pay-per-view personally, unless they really, really, really stop that card. But regardless, it'd be ill-advised of PBC to do a pay-per-view that same night. So I feel like everyone's just kind of, waiting and see who makes whatever move. And then I think the schedule will take shape around that. But as of right now, that fight is still not finalized. It's in play. It's very much in play. Everyone believes it's like 90, 95%. I don't know that it's really moved even since last week. Though.
Gotcha.
I don't know what the hold up is either, granted, but yeah.
Gotcha. Jay, you had a question?
Yeah, going along the same lines with the Haney. The fight last night was William Zepeda and Gesta. William Zepeda won by stoppage. Corner through the doctor stopped it due to the bleeding on the nose and whatnot, and he called out Haney. Is he really a player? I mean, Haney's at 140 right now. I know Haney is still has 3 out of 4 belts right now at 135. Is Zepeda really a player at 135 still, or is Oscar just really having all that stuff come out there just for publicity?
William Zepeda to me is someone who, once all the belts become available, I think he's going to be in very good position to capture at least one. I think he will have a say in the future of the lightweight division for as long as he can make lightweight. I don't know how easy or difficult it is for him to. I can't imagine he has a very long shelf life at the division, but I think he can remain at the weight long enough to win a belt. I absolutely would not pick him straight up against Devin Haney. I would not pick him to beat Tank. I probably wouldn't pick him to beat Shakur Stevenson. I think he's a level just below those guys. I would really like to see him beat the type of contender, I know we're going to get to Frank Martin, but Frank Martin reached a point, like once he did what he did like to Michel Rivera, it was like, okay, this guy's like, the prospect face is gone. He's an absolute contender. And even though he struggled in his last fight, it was still the type of fight where he showed you the things where, okay, he's at the point where he probably should have to at least challenge for a title, even if he has to reload after that, but he's way beyond the prospect phase. William Zepeda, he has struggled with certain styles. He dominates certain styles. Marcito Hesta is the type of guy that I think it was a perfect matchup for him. He'd only been stopped once, but there was always the writing on the wall that Zepeda was absolutely just going to break him down. I thought he had a far easier time than I expected. The fight ended a couple of rounds earlier than I thought it would, but it was the type of fight where he was made to look, spectacular, and he did his job last night. I would like to see him take at least one more step-up fight against a real contender before we start saying, okay, he's ready for Haney, Tank, Shakur, the absolute elite. I think he's right there. I wouldn't say just below. Like if you had to make a list of the guys below the absolute elite level, he's probably at the top of that list. I'd probably even put him above Isaac Cruz. Maybe I'm crazy for saying that, or at least he's on par with Isaac Cruz.
Yeah,
in my opinion, or even if he's a level below. But like I'd say he's at least like the first, second, and third. He's in the top three of the best of the rest at lightweight. That's where I think he's at right now.
Yeah, I agree. I would like to see Isaac Cruz Zepeda fight. That'd be a bomb. First
of last night, just seeing William Zepeda just pure unadulterated violence last night. It's like that's because Isaac Cruz, he had that really, really difficult style in his last fight, and he just didn't know what to do with it. He kind of looked clueless. He hadn't looked like that in any of his past fights. But Isaac Cruz has a nice following though. Zepeda's getting a little, he has this little cult following. I don't know his real fan base. It was a pretty small, venue last night for what was supposed to be a big celebration for Mexican Independence Day. So he's got some work to do on that front. But yeah, that is an absolutely that's a terrific matchup. That was like all I could think of is like, okay, if Pitbull can't get that Tank rematch, or if Tank decides he's not going to fight for the rest of 2023, let's go ahead and do that fight. So maybe maybe they get one of the sanctioned bodies to force Haney's hand. Maybe he gives up another belt, takes champion of recess status, and another with another sanctioned body, and then they fight for one of those belts. But yeah, that's a terrific matchup.
I'll be for that because Zepeda surprised me with the body work he was using.
Yeah,
that fight was. Greg, did you get to see the fight last night with William Zepeda and
I haven't seen it.
Man, yeah, he did phenomenal body work on Gesta last night. It was, but like Jake said, he was pretty much the perfect style for him too. He was there to be hit, and he really wasn't just really giving it. Now Zepeda does get hit a little bit. He does get hit, so that would be my issue with him fighting someone like a Tank. That has power, and someone like Devin or Shakur that could just kind of pick him apart. But it'll be a great fight though. It'd be fireworks for sure.
Yeah, but like I said, I think he's just like that one, maybe two looks away from like, okay, this guy can actually go challenge whoever he wants, and not be facing something he never faced before.
Fact.
Now, granted, I don't know what's out there that can possibly prepare you for Tank. That's like. Once you get hit by him, that's not to say that like that, but beyond that, though, like I said, you want to get as many looks as possible before you want to challenge, pound for pound talent.
Yeah, don't disagree. So Jake, earlier you mentioned that PBC would have possibly 2 pay-per-views after Canelo Alvarez versus Jermell Charlo. What have you heard that those fights could possibly be?
So one of them, obviously, it's been talked about it had to be at least weeks now. David Benavidez and Demetrius Andrade. It just seems like it keeps getting kicked further and further down the schedule, though, because this fight, once upon a time, started out as they were hoping for maybe Benavidez and David Morrell. I don't know if the fight was agreed to at some point, and then Benavidez decided, no, I'm not fighting him, or if it was a PBC creation that didn't make its way to both camps, to get their confirmation. But that somehow devolved. Benavidez was looking at a fight with Jaime Munguia. That couldn't happen. And now it's, as far as I know, Demetrius Andrade is on board to fight David Benavidez. I I can't confirm the situation on Benavidez aside. I really don't like speaking for fighters when I don't have all the details. But to my knowledge, they are just waiting on a date at this point. I don't know why it can't happen in November. I don't know, why it would have to happen in December if it's going to. But that's one of the two. And then, obviously, I feel like we're kind of right back where we were last year. We've waited so long. We finally got, Terence Crawford, Errol Spence, and now here we are waiting for the rematch. Errol activated the rematch clause. Now here we are waiting to see, okay, are they really going to fight each other? If so, are they going to fight each other in 2023? If they're going to fight each other in can they squeeze that in December? How does the rest of the schedule take shape? So here we are once again, trying to shape the Showtime PBC schedule around Terence Crawford and Errol Spence.
Yep.
Do you so we did a video earlier this week. We had gotten wind that Terence Crawford was saying that he would be interested in a fight with Errol Spence at 54 only if he's paid additional money, and if not, he wants to fight at 47, even though he said that he has been struggling to make 47 as well. What have you heard around that, Jake?
I'm not going to say that I've heard that specific rumor, but I will say Terence Crawford is in a situation he knows he has leverage. Errol's only real leverage was that he activated the rematch clause. Now, Bud can be like, okay, you know what? Errol made all these concessions to make the fight finally happen. He gave him full credit for that going into that first fight. I think he's trying to play big dick a little bit in the rematch, but he has that right, though. Like I said, I don't think honestly, look, I'm already on record as a fan. I don't need to see that fight at least this year. I'd love to see Errol fight once or twice at 154, and then, okay, I'd be perfectly fine with the rematch next year. But it's his right to demand that rematch. He has that contractual right to demand it. So, whatever. If Bud is on board, that's great. But if Bud is saying, okay, Errol, fine, you're doing it, but either, you come all the way down to 147, or, you add a zero to my salary to get me to come up to that's not right. That's his leverage.
Yeah.
He dominated. He's the lead, with his one fight so far this year. He's the leading candidate for Fighter of the Year, probably by a mile, to be honest.
Yeah.
So he's in the driver's seat right now. So, Errol's going to have a decision to make as to, I don't know if Errol can make 147. I don't know if he wants to make 147. Again, like I said, Bud knows what he's doing in this. What my thing is, though, if this rematch doesn't happen, I'm just curious as to what the next steps are. I know Bud has been very vocal. He wants the Canelo fight, but that's a very, very, very long line. And as I mentioned, if Canelo beats Jermell Charlo, I already kind of see this fight coming up. Is a lot of people are intrigued by it. To me, it's like if Canelo beats him, there's already a list of built-in excuses that Mel's moving up 2 divisions. He hasn't fought in whatever since last May. So like if that's going to be the case, what is he going to gain by fighting a guy moving up 3 weight divisions? So Granted, I know Bud is 1 pound for pound, so I just don't see the upside for Canelo. To me, that's a no-lose situation for him.
Yeah, I agree, especially with Canelo. Canelo already stated on several occasions, he's gonna say he's too small. People gonna say he's too small. He's not gonna get the credit for beating him. Just like Bud said, he wouldn't get the credit for beating Tank. Right. Tank would be moving up as well, so it's the same situation. So yeah, I think that if he said on several interviews, even after post fight, he'll be thinking about the 54. But like you said, add a zero to my paycheck, then we can definitely get it on. But to say you struggle at 147 as well to make it, it's hard for you. Not necessarily struggle, but it's hard for you to make it, and you have an opportunity to fight at 54. Just fight at 54. Let's get this out the way.
Let me ask you something.
What I find I'm sorry, before you get there. What I find is that Bud went on this whole rampage. I'm sure we all saw it. Just reminding Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman and every other PBC welterweight that wouldn't fight him, that he, in his words, that he was frozen out all this time, and now he's not going to give any of those guys a shot. Thurman, granted, he was just dropped for the WBC ranking, so I don't even know if he would be in the mix to fight Terence Crawford next, if that's the next option. But he already said he's not really interested in fighting Boots at this time. The only other person left would really be Stanionis. Is that a sellable pay-per-view? Does Showtime blow whatever's left in its budget to put that on its linear network? I mean, I just don't see the big options out there for Bud. So I don't know. These next few weeks are going to be very interesting. I just hope it gets resolved and it doesn't hold up either fighter's career either.
Yes.
So, a lot of Crawford fans and some of his trolls would argue that Terence Crawford's profile is so much higher, or it's dramatically higher than what it was prior to the fight, that now this would be a very appealing fight for Errol Spence. Based off of what we have access to, not to say that this is the be all, end all, but the analytics would show that Terence Crawford is exactly where he was before the fight today. Do you feel like, just based off what you've seen from your perspective, the people that you interact with, that Terence Crawford's profile is considerably higher such that it would attract Canelo Alvarez?
I wouldn't say it's considerably higher across the board. I would say the audience that previously wouldn't give him a chance, give him a fair shake because of who he was aligned with, I think they finally now seen the light and they realize, okay, he is him.
Yeah.
But no, beyond that, he's not by any. I mean, look, I love the, it had to been like a month-long media tour he did. He pretty much did interviews with every single imaginable mainstream outlet he can come up with. So I give him full credit for that. He, did a great job of keeping the lights on. But no, beyond that, yeah, he's not that. That helped him. No, I don't think he's that level of a star. I'm not even sure if he's. I think maybe he caught up to Errol Spence. As crazy as that would sound, I think Errol was always the significantly bigger star going into that fight, but he wasn't even that global superstar. So I'd say right now they're probably on the same level. Maybe Bud surpassed him a little bit, but he's still not that guy that just absolutely breaks the needle as far as like mainstream goes.
Yeah, that's the way I see it. Go ahead, Jay.
And I think the fight showed that too, because like a couple of years ago, we were talking about, just doing this fight. There was concern like that it has certain, ceiling as far as like how many pay-per-view buys it would do. A lot of it has to do with, just the piracy. People would just freely steal a fight, at any chance without paying for it. But the final number where that landed, it didn't really surpass that target number they had 2 years ago. So, and this was a fantastic promotion. I thought they hit, I thought they overachieved as far as like, promoting that event. And we still got the number we got. I don't see a rematch doing any better. I'd see it doing significantly worse.
Yeah, I think with the 650, 700, honestly, I think they just caught back up to where they were. I think coming out of the first negotiations, people had lost interest in the fight and it didn't have the same energy or buzz around it. And I think that damaged the fight to some extent. So, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. If that fight happened like last November, I think that was its absolute peak.
Yep,
So,
agreed. Totally agree.
You got it, but yeah, there's just a bit of fatigue. We're getting a lot of really great fights in 2023, but so far, like Tank and Ryan Garcia is the one that really far and away surpassed any expectations.
Yeah.
Broke the game with that one.
So Jay, you got another question?
Yeah. Now, going back, staying with Bud and 147, Ellerbe was talking about he thinks Boots deserves a title shot. Now, with this mandatory, him being IBF, how is that playing into the fact, would that force Bud to either fight or vacate, or how would that play into that with the IBF side?
The problem with that, I mean, it's going to take a sanctioned body to order a fight. I just don't know that the IBF is next in the rotation. I don't believe they are. To my knowledge, Stanionis should be next in the rotation.
Oh.
And the moment his fight with Virgil Ortiz fell apart, like Gilberto Mendoza should have had his finger on that button. Like the moment Bud and Spence were done, they should have been like, okay, either you guys are going to rematch or we're ordering this mandatory. So now they're kind of stuck at trying to get this rematch over the line. I think the WBA should seriously be monitoring that situation, and that if that fight doesn't get ordered, if that fight doesn't get finalized, immediately order that fight. Because Stanionis deserves that much. Of all people, for all the nonsense that he's been through, he was supposed to fight, for the main WBA title. He stood down so Ugas can fight Errol Spence and let them fight for those 3 belts. And then he was supposed to be guaranteed the winner, with the exception that if Errol Spence and Terence Crawford fought last year, that would be the one exception to him getting that shot. That fight moved so far along that he wound up with his own mandatory of Virgil Ortiz, and he's been strung along for almost a year, really, with that fight before it finally fell apart in July, and we realized Virgil just can't make 147 anymore. Stanionis still hasn't fought since last April, though. So out of everyone in this conversation, I absolutely want to see Boots eventually get his shot. I think he deserves, a high-profile fight instead of, anyone stupidly calling him an email champion or whatever. He deserves way better than that. But Imanta Stanionis is the guy that absolutely deserves a shot at the title. He's waited the longest, and the WBA is next in the rotation.
Jake, let me ask you something in that, because we've had questions on this multiple times. So is there an official order that they have? Because I was under the impression at some point that the WBC, WBA, WBO, and IBF were negotiating some type of pact where they would order in specific, they would get specific title shot orders, but I don't know if that ever materialized. And then Boots Ennis, because there seems to be some. I always understood that he became the mandatory after the Quran, whatever his last name is. That was my understanding. He was mandatory, and then when he beat Villa, he became interim. Am I not thinking about that correctly?
So yeah, when he beat Custio Clayton, that was supposed to get him in position to become the mandatory. And then I guess when they realized everything that was going on with the titles, Spence first was negotiating with Bud, and then he was supposed to be fighting Keith Thurman because the WBC ordered that mandatory. And then if that fight was going to happen, it was going to happen above the weight. Then Boots and his team were like, you know what, we're going to get frozen out, so let's just cover all bases. So that's why an interim title was at stake. That he absolutely wants to fight the champion to become the champion, but if the champion ducks him, at least he's in a position where his interests are protected. So right. I think he's just going to become IBF champ by default. I don't believe Bud is going to fight. I'm not saying he's ducking him or anything. I'm not going to call anyone of that magnitude, accuse them of ducking anyone. But I see Boots just not getting his opportunity, unfortunately, at 147. I think for him, once his career finally gets on track, it's going to be once he moves up to 154. I think he'll be able to make a lot more noise then. But for now, I think he's just going to have to settle for an upgrade from interim to full titleist. But the WBC was first in the rotation, and there's no set rotation like WBC goes first and WBA. It's just a matter of whenever a mandatory happens and then the titles get unified, you have to decide, okay, well, this sanctioning body, just had their shot, so now we go next. So based on that, the WBC had ordered Spence Thurman, but it reached a point where if they were going to fight, Spence was, well, I don't know if it was Spence or PBC told Keith Thurman this, but that the fight would have to take place above the limit. Once that happened, that would put the WBA next in the rotation, which is Stanionis. Stanionis had his own mandatory. Virgil Ortiz can no longer make weight. So now he should be the mandatory. He should be the next mandatory in line. And then Boots would follow after that. And then there's Alexis Rocha, who figures somewhere in the mix as well.
Okay. Yeah. But Ennis is a mandatory.
He is a mandatory, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Jay, do you have a follow-up question on that, Jay?
Oh, no, I was just agreeing with you about the Boots being a mandatory.
Gotcha. I just want to, before we move off Boots, because I did have a question on him. I saw him recently post that he's coming back soon, which I would think indicates that he's going to come back probably in Q4 sometime. Have you heard about a potential opponent for Jaron Ennis? And I hope it's something that would actually move us.
I've not heard anything. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Like I said, I see the lock, the smoke, running, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Fight, locked in, 32-0, 29 knock, whatever. No, I hope he gets a third fight because, like I said, I hated that he was limited to, 2 rounds of action in 2022 when everyone thought they were going to fight at the end of the year and they all got frozen out. So I love the fact that he got that first fight in January, even though it wasn't his best outing. At least he got, a fight on the books in 2023. Then he moved on. He had a terrific showing in July. I would love to see him get 3 fights in 2023 and then really hit the ground running in 2024. I have not heard anything firm. And again, there's a lot of moving parts right now. We don't know how many Showtime Championship boxing dates we're going to get in the final 3 months. We don't know how many pay-per-views we're going to get. So there's a lot of, people way beyond our pay grade are trying to figure out who's going to fight where in the fourth quarter.
Mm.
So, and I have a feeling that, all these guys think they're going to fight. I got a feeling there's going to be quite a few fighters who they're going to get their feelings hurt.
Gotcha. Okay.
We also still don't know if Hank is going to fight for a third time in 2023. If he
that's
decides
what
he wants to squeeze in a fight in this, that really shakes up the schedule because he's the absolute priority.
Yeah. Gotcha. And the only person we've heard about Tank fighting this is just Pitbull Cruz. That's the only person.
Yeah, I've heard one other name, but I'm not going to mention it. So I will say Pitbull's the best name I've heard.
Okay, got you. All right.
Is it a name that we'll be excited about? Can you say that much?
I'm on record as saying, if we get someone like of Gervonta Davis's magnitude that fights 3 times in a year, I couldn't care less who he fights for a third fight on the year. So even if it's the guy that I'm thinking of that he could fight, I'd be perfectly fine with it because it's a treat to get him in the ring 3 times in 1 year. That this is going back to 2019 when he made his name, he started headlining Showtime cards and made that transition from just another title holder to a legit star. So but if he's going to rest and reload and come back in 2024, then it would have to be at least Pitbull Cruz, if not better.
Gotcha. No issues.
Don't want to see no Pitbull Cruz again.
Now, here's the thing. Again, I know we're going to get to this fight because a lot of people keep thinking, okay, we didn't get Shakur, Frank Martin. That means we're getting Tank, Frank Martin. I'm not saying Tank wouldn't want to fight Frank Martin. I have to imagine Tank is willing to fight anybody in the world. To me, it's an unfair burden to kind of say, okay, well, Frank Martin has to be fighting him just because we can't accept the fact that he's not fighting Shakur Stevenson. So I don't think people should be quick to default to that. I'd rather wait and see. I'd rather hear from Tank to see what he wants to do first before we decide, why Frank Martin did what he did.
Yeah, let's talk about Frank.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where you want to start with, Greg?
So
Man Down Promotions. Where you want to start at it?
I guess we'll start and kind of get into that. So it was you, Jake, that actually posted something on Twitter where Jason saw it and sent it to me, and it was tied to something called Spit Bucket Podcast. And you said something to the effect of, I'd be interested in hearing what it is that they have to say. And I just because you were interested in hearing what they had to say, I'm thinking they must be legit. So I went in and looked at it. And they were basically saying that Frank was not aware of the negotiations. I guess later on got the detail of what the money was going to be and was not satisfied with that split because of the risk associated with fighting Stevenson. What's your thoughts on that?
That was a very interesting podcast because, like I said, I thought I had a perfect linear sense of everything that happened up to and including the fight falling apart. Mm-hmm. The fact that there was, I know we've heard rumblings that Frank Martin might leave Derrick James. I don't, as a reporter, I hate speculating anything like that unless I have absolute confirmation that, a relationship is dead in the water. Because if there's any, like if there was a brief, if there was a beef, between them and it's, easy to resolve, I wouldn't want to put out there, oh my God, there's trouble in paradise, hopefully they could fix it. Because once it kind of gets to that point, there's really no turning point. So I don't know the depths of that. I have literally not heard from anyone at Man Down Promotions regarding this. So I have yet to be able to speak to that. I know the guys at Spit Bucket, they're not just in the habit of just like, some channels, they'll just, whatever. Any rumor they hear, they'll just throw it out there. You guys, I know you run it down, and you won't bring it on air unless you are absolutely certain that it's true, or at least 95.5 or whatever. Spit Bucket, they're the same way. So they, and a lot of channels too, like I said, they have a lot of you have inside sources that, reporters like us, we just don't. So I actually rely on a lot of you channels to get that information. So it was very interesting to hear that maybe the fight was negotiated without him as leverage to keep him on board, because my understanding of the whole thing was that of the morning of the purse bid, it seemed from Monday night to Tuesday morning, everyone involved felt like that fight was absolutely going to a purse bid. There was no way they were reaching the deal. Then all of a sudden, out of the blue, they're like, hey, we came to agreement. Not that the fight was done, but they came to an agreement. The purse bid was canceled. And then in the next 3 days that followed, it somehow went from there to the offer being presented for Frank Martin to sign to the fight just absolutely falling apart. So it's a horrible situation too, because like I said, if Man Down Promotions did that, now you got to question why would Errol Spence and everyone else in his company, why would they do that to Frank Martin? If it's not true, now you got to question, well, why would Frank Martin just not accept this? He's not going to make this money in any other fight at PBC unless he absolutely is certain that he's getting the Tank fight next. That's the only fight under that umbrella where he'd make what he would have made, what he would get to fight Shakur Stevenson.
Did you hear what the splits were? Or the amount that he was going to get?
All right. So once the fight went to a purse bid, my understanding was that they were at least $500,000 apart, if not more, in terms of what Top Rank was offering versus what Frank Martin wanted. Now, also keep in mind too, when a fighter, it's not just PBC, it's any fighter who's under a certain umbrella. When they fight outside that universe, when like a Top Rank fighter fights on another platform, when a Matchroom fighter fights on ESPN and that promoter is not involved, you got to pay, your side a certain percentage. So based on that, Frank Martin, and Spit Bucket did mention this, Frank Martin basically wanted a payday where he wanted to walk away with $1 million after, he was done paying out whatever percentages he had to. I don't know how close Top Rank came to that. I'm hearing very different numbers as far as like the number that was on paper that, to my knowledge, PBC agreed to, or at least whoever was negotiating on Frank Martin's behalf, that they agreed to, that he just didn't. I know he said what he said, that he ain't ducked no one, that, he's not turning down the Shakur fight, but there's a serious disconnect. It's not on the Top Rank side either. A lot of people, it just really shows like how much people really, really hate Shakur Stevenson. I don't know why. But I get some things. I don't agree with the energy he's putting out there. I see how he talks to Frank Martin. I see how he talks to Devin Haney. I see how he doesn't talk to Vasily Lomachenko. Granted, I'm the very wrong person to kind of go there, but it is weird how he's quick to call out certain people and not call out people under the Top Rank umbrella. But beyond that, though, like I said, to me, in my opinion, this is just my opinion. I think Frank Martin is walking away from a golden opportunity. I don't think there's anything lost with taking this fight, taken by the biggest payday of his career. If you lose, so what? You got plenty of time to rebuild. You're still right back. Haney is probably going to give up the other 3 belts once he fights Regis Prograis. You're going to be in a position to fight for another title soon enough. So I just think he walked away from a really great opportunity. But if there is trouble in paradise on his side, that would be the perfect explanation. But there's still more questions to be answered, and we're not getting those. That's the problem. Yeah. It's like, nobody. Errol Spence really hasn't said anything about his own fight with Terence Crawford. Never mind whatever's going on with Frank Martin or anyone else in that camp. So, like I said, there's a lot of questions, that need to be asked that, we're not getting any of those answers right now.
Yeah.
But like I said, up until that fight fell apart, I never heard anything where PBC even felt disrespected by whatever Top Rank was offered. To me, it seemed like, it just reached a point where Frank Martin said, I'm not taking this fight. Granted, he has his reasons, but, I don't think the fight was turned down on his behalf. I mean, I know we've seen like people brought up like Peter Quinlan back in the day when he was supposed to fight for whatever vacant title. And, Al Heyman pulled him out of that, because he wanted to keep him in the PBC universe. I don't think it's a situation like that where he was talked out of taking this fight. This seems to be like Frank Martin's own doing. But it does sound like something needs to be cleared up on his side.
Gotcha.
And it's a shame because people keep talking about that he's too old to be a prospect, but he's still young enough to where you don't want to see his career held up over nonsense. I mean, it's not like he's injured or anything. It's like to be frozen out because of the business side. It's just a shame for a guy like him.
You talking about Shakur, right?
No, I'm talking about Frank Martin. Shakur Stevenson has a fight.
Yeah.
He's doing just fine. And I know people keep talking about and whatnot. Look, Shakur has a November 16th date with Edwin De Los Santos, and whether Frank Martin deserved, to my knowledge, the purse split was going to be 60-40 if it went to a purse split. People could talk about he deserved 50-50. Right now, he's getting 100% of $0. So,
for me personally, it didn't make any sense for Frank to pass up that fight because at the end of the day, he was getting everything that he said he wanted. Champion, or at least a shot at the champion. He mentioned Shakur Stevenson as one of the names that he was interested in. So did Errol. And if he was getting something that was significantly higher than what he was getting before, he should have went with it. And the reason why I say this is because if he was like 22, I'd be like, yeah, gotcha. I understand why you didn't. But at 28, and probably by the time he actually, the fight, he would have been close to 29 if I'm not mistaken, because I think he turned 29 early next year. It's like, dude, you don't have that much time to begin with. You need to hop on this right now, and you're gonna have to take a risk in order to make it happen. So,
yeah. And again, I'm just curious. Like, I know Steven Espinoza was on record saying that if the fight fell apart, that he would look into how he can fit him into whatever the fourth quarter schedule or whatever they think. I just don't see what opportunity is there, unless he fights Pitbull Cruz or something. There's no type of fight where he's going to get anything close to what he was going to make on November 16th. Yeah. So, and I think out there too that if he felt disrespected at any point in the promotion, just send that fight right back to purse bid.
Yeah, I don't get that. Absolutely.
Top Rank and PBC were both prepared to bid on that fight. So let's say hypothetically, one of them bid, $3 million. He's looking at a $1.2 million payday out of that.
Yeah.
It's just weird, especially with stuff he said about Kerr. Going ahead and take the fight against Devin, betting on yourself, taking a little 25%, all that stuff there. Then all of a sudden, he does the same thing in a sense, Yeah.
And to just, like I said, I don't want to sit here and defend Shakur in every single move. Like I said, I don't agree with a lot of things he says, outside the actual fights. But people keep accusing, Shakur ducked that Devin Haney fight. He didn't like the offer that was made, and I never even heard a dollar amount. All we heard was 25%. Look, I can't tell my mortgage I'm going to pay 25% of my mortgage this month. They're like, no, we want our $1,200 payment. I want to hear a dollar amount. So Shakur didn't like whatever split was offered. So he went to the WBC and said, we'll go ahead and order this fight. And then he petitioned to get a better split. I don't know if the WBC ever even ruled on that, but he never walked away from that fight. He actually took the steps to force that fight to happen, and it led to Devin Haney having to give up his belt and become champion in recess. Frank Martin did not take those steps. That's a significant difference that people are overlooking. That's why I say I don't get why people are just taking this argument because they just absolutely hate Shakur Stevenson, but they're not making any sense by going all in to defend Frank Martin. If they supported Frank Martin to this level, Frank Martin would have had the fan base to where he could demand whatever he wanted. I don't know where all these people were prior to this point.
That's a fair comment. Very fair comment. Jay, what other questions you got?
Yeah, I mean, man, I want to say, now we really don't know what's next for Frank because we don't even know what's going on with his own situation with Man Down Promotions.
Right.
It's been, they were talking about, so my understanding is supposedly that Derrick James is also the manager or something like that from what we had heard before last week.
I don't know the full infrastructure of Man Down. Like, I hear all these companies, whenever it's named after a fighter, it's like you just assume like it's mostly a shell company, but there is some sort. I know, Errol has his fighters, but like Frank Martin basically is Man Down Promotions besides when Errol actually fights.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to pretend to know that situation. Like I said, I don't like speaking on situations like that where
it's weird.
I'm at disposal. It is though. That's a very strange situation. But again, I would get, promoters have done that where if they know they can lock a fighter in by negotiating that fight, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, if you don't take this fight, it's breach of contract. You can't walk away. I get that. I just don't want to believe that any of that is true between the three of them.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, it sucks for them. I mean, Man Down and Spence just in general, Derrick James in general, it's been rough for them.
Yeah.
I mean, they especially
Yeah.
So
it's been a rough year for those that supported him as well. I want to acknowledge NHA Tube. How ironic it would be if Frank gets clipped next fight and only makes $75,000 in the loss. Wow, that would be not so good.
he's on his part.
I do have a quick question about. Have you heard anything new on Virgil Ortiz?
Just that Oscar's trying to get him back in the ring in December. I know he mentioned 154. I'm even curious if, unless he's fighting like a title limiter or something, maybe even take a fight at 156, anything that where he's comfortable coming back into the ring. Haven't heard anything in the way of an opponent, but I know Oscar's trying to fill in his November and December dates. We already have October 7th in the books for Golden Boy, that Zula Ramirez and Joe Smith. So that leaves Golden Boy with, if they're going to move forward in the Ryan Garcia business, and I'm still trying to find out, at least from Ryan's side, if they're on board with what Golden Boy's talking about. You're talking about getting Ryan Garcia, Jaime Munguia, and Virgil Ortiz all back in the ring before the end of the year. So that's a pretty crowded schedule for the dates the Zone is normally willing to give Golden Boy. Now, granted, if Golden Boy can deliver Ryan Garcia, the Zone will absolutely give him whatever date they want. If they can deliver a Jaime Munguia, a significant Jaime Munguia fight, again, then the Zone will make concessions. But with Munguia, like I know they told Munguia and Edgar Berlanga both, you either fighting each other or you could both sit out the rest of the year. So that would leave Ryan Garcia. I mean, great. They're just not going to keep throwing their money away, for them to fight the Jason Quigleys and what Munguia had the fight with Sergey Derevyanchenko, but that was a significant step up from where he was. And Derevyanchenko is the guy that just keeps just barely loses to every middleweight, but he does keep losing. So. I mean, for that to be Munguia's standout fight at middleweight, the Zone is kind of take notice of that. So, you better be, driving subscriptions if you're going to keep fighting guys like that. So, those guys, they have to step it up. Virgil Ortiz has a little bit of flex. I think the Zone would be willing to get him back, give him a date, not necessarily against A-list or opponent. But I like to see him fight at something comfortable just so he can safely get through a training camp, and then just make his way to the ring. Not fight a complete walkover, but just something like a 155, 156 fight. Where you can remind the world how good he is and then get back into the mix at junior middleweight. But that's the latest I've heard on Virgil Ortiz is, if he gets back in the ring in 2023, it'll be a December date.
Yeah, that'd be good to hear because with his health issues, that was scary.
It is.
Very scary.
Yeah. And that was the thing I said all along. Like everyone was like dumping on granted, it was a horrible situation. I felt bad for Stanionis. The guy did his job. He was in training camp and then had to find out before the press conference that, okay, hey, They told him the press conference was canceled. I guess they meant it was canceled for him because his fight was canceled at that point. But that was just a horrible situation for him. But for Virgil, you felt bad because like he didn't plan for any of this. He went through a full training camp too, and then just to have your body shut down once again, it's like I said, I want to see him safely return to the ring. Like immediately, like once that fight fell apart, his team was already told, 154, we're going to take over. It's like, dude, make sure he's healthy first, before we start talking about his boxing career.
I totally agree with that because I'm not sure he's going to get back to quote unquote healthy enough to actually be a boxer.
Yeah, and how do you even test for that though? It's like it's not like you could just
exactly
make sure you don't have Rado this week. It's like it's just no guarantee. It's a huge risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right, Jay. Well, you got any more questions, man?
Yeah, I mean, since you're talking about fallouts, what you say? Now, since you're talking about fallouts, any more news on like Wilder, AJ?
I just don't think the money they thought was there is actually there. So to me, that just all seemed like a big smokescreen. Yep. So, because it already sounds like AJ is ready to move on. I always wanted to see Deontay Wilder get at least one fight before. I never wanted to see him sacrifice his entire 2023 after fighting just one round last year. And really just ending, with what did he land, like 2 or 3 punches in that one fight? So that's just not a lot of activity. He's only had one fight really since a fight and a round since the pandemic. So I'd love to see him get back in the ring at least once more. But again, these guys are at a level. It's like, AJ has the comfort of the zone, whatever. He's a DAZN ambassador for life. So he's going to get the date, whether it's a DAZN date or a DAZN pay-per-view. Who's paying for Deontay Wilder's next fight, though? That's what I keep asking. Like, if you're talking about Wilder and Ruiz, but that reached a point where, like, PBC wasn't paying, whatever, both sides wanted, or maybe one side was outpricing. Who knows? But, that fight no longer became a PBC fight. So I just don't know who Wilder can fight and who's going to pay for it. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. It seems like he's already starting to train for a fight. If I'm interpreting what I've seen on ES News and stuff like that correctly, it seems like he's already starting.
Yeah, to me it seems like he sees the writing on the wall. That okay, now there's a very, very good possibility he doesn't fight AJ next. So he just can't keep sacrificing his career. I know he started late, so he's not necessarily as old as his age, but it catches up to you eventually. So.
Agreed.
Yeah, but this is why I go back to like if WBC ordered like AJ and Wilder, for example, even if they didn't want to fight each other, now you could at least give a guy like Frank Sanchez a chance. He's finally get back in the ring on September 30th. Then let him move up to that. At some point, like I said, you can't say that Fury's ducking these guys. He doesn't have a mandatory to duck right now. Right. So it sucks that he's right in that regard, but he is. And he's actually made his mandatory and fought since like Jermell Charlo has last fought, for example. So there's, I'm not big on whataboutisms, but like the WBC has kind of flexibility. They can say, well, we're forgiving Jermell Charlo, the benefit of the doubt. Why can't we give Tyson Fury the benefit of the doubt? And I don't know if Fury's paying them like whatever sanction. A lot of times we hear, like even though the belt's not at stake, they still pay, their sanctioning body a certain, fee or whatever just to keep their title, in their possession. So it's, this is a business. So everyone has to be making money somehow. But I just want to see some kind of movement where, like, if we know AJ and Wilder aren't going to fight each other, then put guys in a position where you can order an actual fight and get a mandatory in position for once Fury is done with the sideshow. And then you can tell him, okay, no, well, now you have to defend your title next. Because it's not fair to guys like Frank Sanchez and other heavyweights who actually want to fight the best and are being frozen out because of it.
Yeah. Speaking of the heavyweights, what's going on happen with Usyk? Is he going to fight your boy, what was it, Philip?
Hergovich.
So,
my understanding was when Usyk went into the fight with Daniel Dubois, he was given an order by the IBF on, I want to say August 1st. It was like a little, like 3 or 4 weeks before the fight, where he was told that once the fight happened, whoever won that fight was absolutely going to have to fight Filip Hergovich next. Now, at the time, that order was made because they believed the undisputed fight was dead in the water. Now, all of a sudden, we're getting all, it's like one day, it's like, okay, now they're negotiating these guys, it's serious. They want to fight each other early next year. And then, as you both mentioned, you get stories like Fury saying, I couldn't care less about undisputed. I want to make as much money as possible. I want to fight John Jones next year. I want to fight Ngannou in the cage. So I don't get why the IBF just hasn't ordered that fight. There's nothing lost by it. Like, even if there is a chance of undisputed, Usyk Hrgovic could happen by the time that undisputed fight can actually be negotiated. The winner of that fight can just as easily go fight Tyson Fury after that. At least get this fight out of the way. That's the problem with all these sanctioned fights. They keep all these mandatories on hold, and then all the belts stay, frozen for, a ridiculous amount of time. We're seeing even at 154, like Jermell Charlo, like he could have gotten the Bakram, title defense out of the way instead of just paying this guy step-aside money for years. So the heavyweight division, like I said, it's really stuck right now. It's just so disinteresting, and there's so much opportunity for a lot of fights to happen that nobody's really willing to take that next step. The IBF, there is no reason whatsoever why they shouldn't order that fight, because I've even been told that Hrgovic's team was prepared to sue if they don't get their title shot ordered.
Oh,
wow!
Yeah. But
Usyk can't catch a break. He just wants to be undisputed. Can't get that. He just had to fight Daniel Dubois,
right?
And now probably Hrgovic. Man,
but now when you fight once a year, though, these mandatory, if you fight more than the titles you have, the mandatories stack up in a hurry. So you can't fight once a year and then be like, oh my God, now I got another mandatory. So we'll fight 2 or 3 times a year, and this shit won't happen.
Right. Makes sense. Jake, you mentioned Maul a couple of times here. What's going on with Maul? And have you heard that he's switching from Ronnie Shields to Roy Jones?
Now, I don't know if he's switching. I do know he is training with Roy Jones. I don't know. Look, like we heard, Mel, he brought on Joan Guzman, but it was to supplement the training that was coming from Derrick James. That was like getting, that teaching, and then just getting like all the defensive wisdom that, Joan Guzman could teach. So Maul is training with Roy. I don't know that Ronnie Shields is out of the picture. I mean, that's his career-long training as far as I know.
Yeah.
So I haven't heard, there was any trouble there or whatever. With his situation, I love that the WBC is compassionate about everything he's going through. The WBC is very, sympathetic to people, with mental health. I love that they take the lead on that. But it does have to reach a point, Jamal, he has to fight. And if he's going to fight at 168, there's no reason why you just can't free that title. Now, granted, Carlos Adames, he's the interim champ. He's not necessarily active either. And there's nothing really holding up his career. The WBC already said they would approve if he went and tried to fight Janibek or whatever, any other champion in the division. So, it's just a tough situation. Like I said, I like that people genuinely care about Maul's, well-being. He seems like he's in a better place from every interview I've seen. He seems a lot happier. He insists he's ready to come back into the ring. It's just a matter of, what weight. He claims he's going to, whenever he comes back, he is ready. I don't know if he's going to defend his title next, but he claims he is he is ready to resume his role as WBC middleweight champion. So I'm glad to hear it. I just want to see it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's an interesting matchup.
Yeah, I don't
Roy
know
Jones in this corner.
I just don't know what he's going to get from, what Roy can offer. I love Roy. Roy's one of my all-time favorite fighters, but I've not seen the great effect he's had on anyone's career as a trainer. I'm not discouraging him from being a trainer. I just haven't seen the results that say, oh my God, I got to leave the best trainers in the game and Ronnie Shields to go train with this guy. So maybe it's just like get a fresh look and then go back to training with Ronnie, just with that, a little bit of knowledge to add to his camp. But I can't see leaving Ronnie Shields for Roy Jones.
Man, how are you going to go and listen to Roy Jones and he's telling you how to throw a hook, but his hooks were not textbook hooks and you could only do if you have ungodly athleticism. I just athleticism. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, if look, we just saw what Chris Eubank did. I mean, you can say what you want about Liam Smith, but we saw 2 very different fighters, in 8 months. So
yeah,
that is true. Now, speaking of Ronnie Shields, any updates on what's going on with David Morrell?
I have honestly no clue. Like I said, he was at a point he was ready to fight Benavidez, and then he was just told that fight was no longer happening. We're still waiting for all these dates to get filled in, for the 4th quarter. But yeah, he's here. He is. He had he had a complete walkover on the Tank Ryan Garcia card. But he did what he did, at least he didn't sit there and go 9, 10, 11 rounds with the guy. He just blew him out of the water on the highest profile show of the year. So he did his job, and now he's just stuck waiting. Again, talking about Boots and what he got stuck with last year, it'd be horrible for a guy like Morrell with so few fights in his career to be stuck to just one fight in 2023. So, speculation-wise, it's I don't know what would be gained if Caleb Plant fought like a David Morrell, but it's you look in the PBC verse, it's what else is there for David Morrell to do if he's not fighting Benavidez, if he's not fighting Demetrius Andrade? if Charlo's not going to jump in, obviously they're not going to fight each other unless he absolutely had a complete falling out with Ronnie Shields, which I haven't heard to be the case. But he's not going to fight his own stablemate, if so. So I mean, yeah, Morrell needs to get back in the ring. He's young. He's got very few fights. He needs that pro experience. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I haven't seen any. I see one question on. I guess I'll ask you. Any updates on Bomac?
No, I have not. I still don't know what to make of that situation. I couldn't believe, when I heard that. It's just like none of it made sense. I'm not going to say he was set up or anything. I just can't see anyone being, the guy's the leading candidate for trainer of the year. He's obviously not that dumb. So, I just throw a loading gun in your suitcase and expect to get away with it. But I don't know. He's, the gun laws are very, very serious over there. So we'll see what happens. I think October 5th, 7th, 6th. This is court date. So sometime in early October. Oh, no, October 9th. I'm sorry. Because I know it's right before Keyshawn Davis's fight. So I hope he's doing well, but I've not heard a word. I've tried to get information, but nobody said anything. And, probably for good reason. It's a very sensitive situation. But I just can't imagine what he's going through to have to be stuck in, in jail in another country.
He's still there? He's still there?
Wow.
Yeah, he was remanded. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Hey, Indian God has a question in the chat, and I think you might have addressed it already, or he or she. Indian God, I'm not sure you're he or she. Question. I'm a Bud fan, but Bud has a history of contradicting himself a lot. This is facts. What is the feel? Yeah, what is the feel or opinions you've heard about how he's handling the Spence 147 rematch situation?
Like I said, I respect the fact that he knows he has leverage, so he can exploit it as much as he wants. He's shown before that if he didn't like something he showed it last year with Spence. If he didn't like the terms of a deal, he's willing to walk away from it. So again, I just, he did that last year, but then he had, it wasn't a great fight, but he had a fight to fall back on. I just don't know what he falls back on, since the only fight he's mentioned besides Spence is Canelo. So, and again, you have to believe there's a very long line of people. Everyone wants to fight Canelo. I want to fight Canelo, for the money, that's all.
Me too.
Yeah, I just, it's a bold move by him. But again, he can demand as much as he wants in this fight. So, Errol told him you got to fight me next. Bud's like, fine, you're going to fight me either at this weight or for this amount. So, I respect that part of it. I just can't see him sacrificing his career, though. I have to believe he has a backup plan that he's just, he's not going to tell us until we actually just see it.
Gotcha. Let's see if there's any other.
I just saw one. I got one. I see one, Greg. So for your favorite fighter, Jake, what's the confusion going around Golden Boy and Rolly with the WBA?
Yeah, that has been on hold for a minute. My understanding is we're eventually going to get a ruling where Rolly is going to be determined champion of recess. I know he had to provide whatever medical records. I still haven't gotten a clear answer if they've received it and if the medical board has reviewed it. But I believe O'Hara Davies is going to wind up fighting for the vacant title. I don't know if it's going to be against Ismael Barroso. I don't know if they're going to sneak Ryan Garcia in there. I don't believe it's going to be Ryan because I've heard another name for his potential opponent. But I'd be, win-win for Golden Boy if they can absolutely make that fight next. But we're not going to get Rolly and O'Hara Davies next. I believe the WBA is going to grant them. They say, okay, we accept the medical records that you provided, but they're not going to allow him to hold the title ransom. So I see O'Hara Davies fighting for the title, and then Rolly either being entitled to fight the winner, or he fights someone else, and then that winner fights whoever has the belt at that point.
You think Rolly don't want that O'Hara Davies smoke?
I don't know what's going on. Look, Rolly's already, begged people to smack the shit out of me once. I'm not going to try to upset him. I got that bookmark too, because I'm waiting for the day. I can use that. But I think it's a business decision more than anything else. So, if you could freeze out Golden Boy and O'Hara Davies just to, make something bigger on the PBC side, I think that's all there is to it. So, but, if he is injured, he's injured. The WBA either has proof of it or they don't.
Yeah,
I agree.
So, Jake, about the whole situation with O'Hara Davies and Ryan, since they're both at 140, both with Golden Boy, you think Ryan's going to use some of that to try to fuel, some of this litigation, for him to try to get out of this contract sooner than later?
I see. I don't. That's why I said. Like, I know Golden Boy has been active about that they're going to move forward. They just added to that lawsuit too. So they added like a breach of contract to that lawsuit. It was a 2-count lawsuit. Now it's a 3-count lawsuit. So it's like they're up in the ante. Whereas like Ryan was trying to get it dismissed outright. I never got the sense that Ryan really wanted to move forward with Golden Boy, but I can't ask him. There's only so much he can legally say, and his lawyers, they're only going to legally say. But of course, it's in Golden Boy. If they're going to the zone, of course they're going to keep saying we're going to deliver Ryan Garcia. It's in their best interest to put his name out there. So it's going to be up to Ryan Garcia to decide whether or not he fights. Now, granted, if breach of contract is on the table and Golden Boy is saying, well, we have a fight that you can take, and he doesn't take it, that kind of only strengthens their case in the lawsuit. So, maybe we do see him kind of, just do that bit of business together, and then they revisit the lawsuit next year. We've seen that with Eddie Hearn and MVP, with Jake Paul, where, they were suing each other, but, we're still getting fights, between their two parties. So we got Amanda Serrano and Erica Cruz for the Undisputed Championship. They didn't let that stand in the way. But the lawsuit also hasn't been settled yet. So, the lawsuits hasn't completely killed the fight. It certainly doesn't help. But, Ryan's at a point where, like I said, even though he lost to Tank, everyone, I think, kind of expected him to. I don't know. People outside of his own fans are really picking him to win that fight. But he's still very young, is still very, very marketable. So you don't want to see his career held up by, any nonsense. He seems pretty confident that he is going to fight in the fourth quarter. So whether it's on a Golden Boy show or he gets out of contract and fights on PBC, that remains to be seen. But it does look like there is a good chance he'll fight in November. So.
Any ideas who he may fight in November for Ryan?
Someone mentioned on Twitter, I've heard Oscar Duarte is a serious candidate, which is better than I don't know where the rumors of him fighting Pedro Campo came out, but Oscar Duarte, even though he'd be moving up in weight, it's a much better fight. And it looks like either Texas or Arizona where they'd take that fight.
Gotcha. Okay, real quick, guys.
I feel more confident hearing that from Ryan Garcia than I do hearing it from, Golden Boy.
Yeah,
facts.
Yep. Guys, we opened up the phone lines. I'm sorry, Jake. We opened up the phone lines, guys. So if you're ready to call in, just hit that 404 number you see down there below. I'm sorry, Jake. Go ahead.
No, you good.
That's
Oh, gotcha. Jason, is there any other specific topics we wanted to address that maybe we haven't yet? Just make sure. I know a lot of it got answered probably in the questions.
Yeah, it did. A lot of it got answered. The only thing is like, will we see a different Canelo and Charlo in their upcoming fight? What? I mean, Charlo's been out 16 months.
Yeah.
So
and this is one of these issues. I don't know if not having to. I've never heard that he struggled to make 154. He even says that there's a chance he can go back to 154. I think he's saying that just so he doesn't get stripped of his other titles, but. I don't know if it's a situation where he's just going to be comfortable in there and we see a completely worse version of Jermell Charlo, or it's a version where those 14 pounds really benefit him and we see very fluid Jermell Charlo. My problem with this fight, look, granted, I think of the two, Jermell is the significantly better. I mean, even though Jermell is undefeated, if they fought each other, I would probably pick Jermell to beat Jermell in a fight. I hope they never do. I don't think. But I was perfectly fine with Canelo fighting Jermell Charlo, just because it would get Jermell Charlo's career moving along. But, I respect the fact that, mental health-wise, he's not in a place where he would want to cash himself out. I completely respect that. But if we got that fight, then we would get Jermell moving along in the junior middleweight division. And that fight would always be on the table for him. If Canelo beat Jermell, then Jermell can go fight him next year. Granted, it's the same situation. But if Jermell loses on September 30th, Jermell going to try to avenge his brother's loss without having anything in the past. He hasn't fought since June 2021, right? So I mean, that's to then go in to try to fight Canelo, who still is one of the best fighters in the world. So I just always had a weird feeling about this fight. I'm whatever. I'm glad that they both they're fine with it. I get the undisputed versus undisputed angle. I just never been a big fan of these fights two weight divisions apart or more. These guys fighting each other, especially when the rest of the division is held up. Because before this fight, all the same fans who are perfectly fine with this fight were screaming, "How come Canelo's not fighting David Benavidez?" He's long over undisputed. That's really the only fight left we want to see at super middleweight.
Yes.
We don't even know if Canelo's 3-fight deal is going to include that fight. He keeps teasing, maybe I could fight him, but that's the only fight that I really care about at this point. For if Canelo's going to stay at 168. So and Mel, like I said, there's plenty to do at 154. I'd really hate to see that division where like just all the belts become free without him fighting any of these guys. So I was looking forward to him fighting Tim Tszyu. I thought Tszyu did a great job of staying active and building a lot more. I mean, when they were supposed to fight in January, I was absolutely picking Jermell outright. But as time went on, he probably still beats Tim Tszyu, but Tim Tszyu did a great job of creating so much more interest in that fight. And now it's at the point he's just going to be committed, to WBO champ without that fight ever happening. And I don't think that fight ever will happen. I don't know if Mel realistically moves down to 154 after this. He's making a lot of money, by far his biggest payday of his career. And he's, fighting 14 pounds above his, his fighting, the fighting weight he's been at for most of his career. So he's going to be very comfortable after September 30th. It's like we've seen what happens when fighters all of a sudden become businessmen. It's just not the same.
Never the same. The hunger is not there.
I hate to put it this way, but we kind of saw that with Spence and Bud. Like Spence at some point in his career became a great businessman. Bud has always been that dog, and we saw it on July 29th. You can say whatever you want about him being weight trained or whatever. He hadn't fought in so long. One guy was a fighter. One guy, Spence was on record saying he wanted to make as much money as possible. And that's what we saw in the ring. So,
bigger fight: Canelo versus Benavidez or Canelo versus Jermell Charlo? I'm talking about pay-per-view number wise.
No, I get that. I'm really trying to think about that. It seems like even a lot of mainstream people, they kind of know David Benavidez from like being that threat to Canelo. I don't know what kind of fan base he has beyond that. The fight with Caleb Plant did well enough to where they both made money, but it was still on the low end of like what you want to see in a pay-per-view. It didn't even crack 200,000 pay-per-view buys. But because there wasn't a lot of expenses involved, both of them made very big paydays out of that fight. But I'd like to believe Jermell Charlo has the significantly bigger fan base. He's done way bigger numbers on Showtime. To me, it just seems like more mainstream people know who Jermell Charlo is. Like even if they have two very different fan bases, Jermell's fan base just seems like they'd be more willing to buy his fight than David Benavidez. Now, granted, I think if people get wind that Benavidez is going to fight Canelo, you're going to get a lot more people out the woodworks. But like I said, if you had to pick one or the other for that fight to happen September 30th, I would get why Canelo is fighting Jermell Charlo. That is the bigger fight right now. I think Canelo has the opportunity to be a huge fight, but it's just tough to say because these guys just don't stay active, and Benavidez doesn't have that track record to show that he can really bring in pay-per-view numbers like that.
No, I agree with that, but don't you think it would increase the interest in the Mexican and Mexican-American communities with David Benavidez?
It would maximize that fan base. I just don't know if any other fan base would really care beyond that point.
Gotcha. Okay.
Jermell, like I said, he just brings in a different, we see him with celebrities all the time on his Instagram. So a lot of those guys, they're going to be checking by night. Those same people aren't necessarily going to be checking in, Damian Lillard can only bring so many fans to the sport.
So, So give me a number, Jake, on the Canelo versus Charlo fight. From what we've seen, just based off of the analytics and the views that we see, not only on our channel but across other channels, the fight doesn't feel like it's trending as well as you would hope. It doesn't feel like it has a big buzz to it. And it actually feels like it has a lower buzz than Spence versus Crawford. Now, maybe I'm wrong on this. I don't know. This is just what I have available to me. What's your thoughts on that? And give me a number.
Man, I was hoping you would give a number. I'd kind of be like, I could see that. Maybe a little lower, a little bit less. You're trying to get me fired, though, man.
I can give you a number. I don't think it's gonna.
You asked. Okay. I'll try to answer this second. I'm gonna go with what you said too. Based on what I've seen, people, I know all access isn't the be all end all, but just like the social media numbers I saw for like Ryan and Tank, like that should have prepared us for what we got in the end result. Like I thought that fight was going to do like 800, 850 pay-per-view. And Showtime, I think at the time was like, they were really hoping that it would hit 800. So once they hit 1.2, it's like, then you look back and be like, wow, okay, all this traffic, now it makes sense that, all these people actually paid. Yeah. With Spence Crawford, I want to say the social it wasn't anywhere close to what Tank and Ryan were doing. And it reflected in the pay-per-view numbers. The stuff I'm seeing now with Canelo and Charlo, I'd say at best it's on par with the kind of buzz we've seen going into Spence Crawford. It had a lot of positive feedback, but it wasn't like, the world wasn't stopping to watch this fight. So it wouldn't surprise me if it did similar numbers to Spence Crawford, or Crawford Spence, I guess I should say.
650 to 7.
I say 6, maybe. I don't know if it's going to hit 700. I don't know. I definitely don't see it surpassing Canelo and Caleb playing, which I think is a shame, because I always had a theory that, like, with the right fight, Jermell would have proven to be a bigger pay-per-view attraction than most guys on the PBC roster. But right now, it just doesn't look like it's even coming close to trending in that direction. I just had so much more buzz because it was for Undisputed. I know they're doing the Undisputed versus Undisputed, but it's Undisputed versus Undisputed in the 4-belt era. And even on the women's side, we had Katie Taylor and Chantel Cameron already do that earlier this year. And that was the first time 2 undisputed champions fought each other. So, and, people are already bringing up, like, oh, well, Joe Frazier and Bob Foster were undisputed when they fought each other for the heavyweight champ. We've seen bigger undisputed, fights in the past. So it's just, I think people are kind of seeing it for the tagline that it is. It's not really a big selling point. I get it was important, for both parties to say that they're undisputed, but we already know Jermell's not even going to leave the ring undisputed. I think by the time the belt sounds, Tim Tszyu is already going to have the WBO belt. So that, like, it's just a tagline. No one's really buying into it. So I could see it touching the low end of Crawford Spence. So like 650, maybe a little bit more. I don't see it hitting 700. And Crawford Spence didn't hit 700 for the record. So
gotcha. I got it coming in at 500.
Ooh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to do better than 500.
I feel like there is more buzz than there was for Canelo and Triple G3 last year. So that's why I don't know if I'd go that low. I don't even know the official numbers for that one, though. I've heard so many random numbers. I don't know what to believe from that. Wow, 500 would be. They'd really have to reconsider what's going on with Canelo and PBC if it does. That's like a massive investment into the future with hopes that his other fights would do bigger business. It's weird. I don't know. Like, I don't want to say the sport is at the same point as it was. Like, we waited so long for Floyd and Manny Pacquiao to fight each other, and once they did, then it just like, okay, well, people just kind of gave up. They had a few other fights. I know Canelo and Miguel Cotto did big business, but like, it just like hit a fatigue point after that. Like, even with when Floyd fought Oscar De La Hoya, then after that, it was like we had a big fight with Miguel Cotto and Zeb Judah, which was a terrific fight, but it didn't do any kind of real business. So I hope that's not going to be the case here. We're like, we finally got Crawford Spence after 5 years of waiting, and now everyone's like, well, screw it. Now I'm just going to bolt. I'm going to watch college football for the rest of the year.
Hey, what?
I don't know if it's just because it's been such a bland promotion as well. Maybe that's why it's not attracting the attention we thought it would. Maybe it's just really going to ramp up. We've seen that where it ramps up during fight week. I know a lot of people kind of speculating that Tank and Ryan Garcia was this. Oh, like there's no buzz. I never really believed that. And then we saw like TikTokers and everyone else just like coming out the woodwork. So I think people will finally come out. They will start supporting Canelo and Charlo. We'll see it really ramp up after this week. But wow, man, if it does 500, man, that's,
let me ask you this.
For the sport, to be honest.
Do you think it's possible that that people don't feel like Charlo has a strong chance, and that may be part of the reason why it's not doing as well? We did a poll earlier today, and I think, Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, but at least 50, maybe 55% don't believe he has a chance to win. But it might have gotten higher than that. I'm not sure. Do you think that could be affecting it, Jake?
It could. I'd like to, be optimistic and say it's still maybe, even though we're 2 weeks out, it's still a little too early to kind of call time of death on this. I don't think it's at that point. I am confident we're going to see like the more interest. We're going to see that wide shot of however many thousand people are going to be, outside or inside, wherever they hold the weigh in. I think we're going to see that like, okay, wow, this event really has caught buzz. But I just, like I said, once the fight was first announced, I just never knew what to make of it, because I'm kind of with you on that. And especially everything we've seen happen since then, like there were a lot of people thought, Inoue and Stephen Fulton would have been more competitive than what it was, Thought Spence was going to be more competitive than what it's like. How many times can you keep going to the wall and hope, okay, well, this is the guy that, even though he hasn't fought in 16 months and he's moving at a weight he's never fought at before, and in a magnitude of an event he's never participated in, this is going to be the guy that, it's going to turn around the luck. So I don't know. Maybe it is a little bit of wishful thinking to hope that, he does pull off the upset in this one. So maybe some people are thinking that. If we're having the same conversation next week and people still aren't talking about the fight, then I would start to buy into all the theories as to why it's just not catching fire. But I just think it's been a really bland promotion so far, and people are just waiting for it to get closer to fight week.
It's definitely been bland.
Not the Canelo event that it would have been, that we got even with Canelo on plan.
Yeah. I just looked at the poll, like over 1,000 votes, and 35% got Canelo winning by KO or TKO. Then everything else is pretty much even. 22% for everything else. Charlo by KO, TKO, Charlo by decision, Canelo by decision. So
that's not bad.
Yeah. So what is that? 57%.
That's not too bad. That's more than 40% going for Charlo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not too bad.
Yeah. Like I said, I want to see what happens next Monday and Tuesday. So, like I said, if we're at that point and people still aren't, talking about the fight like this should be, then I'll be more concerned.
Yep.
Right now, a lot of people, they don't know if they're going to buy a fight until, a day or two before. So.
Yep. Let me ask you this, because we talked a little bit about this earlier, and, if the fight doesn't materialize between Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, you don't know where Crawford could go, right? Ennis is the one that's in line. Personally, I think most people would want to see him face Boots. I'm going to ask you that question. Who would you prefer him see? Who would you prefer to see him face? But as far as Spence is concerned, where does he go from here, Jake? I mean, he wants to fight at 54. What would be available to him, you would think, in the next, few months? Because I would imagine he wants to get back in the ring as soon as possible and not go months and, 7, 8 months, a year and a half, year, whatever, without getting a fight, right?
So I think I said this last time I was on the show, that even if we got the Crawford-Spence rematch, if they fought at 154, I never saw that fight taking place without anything at stake. I always believed that Jermell, for the sake of his, Errol, who he loves like a brother, his training stablemate, I think he would have let a belt go, have a belt available at stake. There was a rumor for a while that maybe he would have let the WBC title be at stake, even though Brian Mendoza is the interim champ. He's going to be fighting Tim Tszyu. To my knowledge, he's not going to be upgraded to full champ going into the fight the way Tim Tszyu has been upgraded. So I could see something like that, where once Errol is finally ready to make that move to 154, I can't just see him settling for like an eliminator or whatever, especially if, like, say, hypothetically, the Keith Thurman fight comes back around. Because right now, Keith Thurman has nothing going on. He thought he was going to fight Lugas tonight. He's not in the WBC rankings anymore. I do not see him getting a Terence Crawford fight unless, Crawford can really, 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 he's going to make him take as little as possible at the fight, And if he thinks he has leverage with Spence, he certainly has leverage with Keith Thurman. So
easily,
I can see that fight coming back into play, even if Errol doesn't necessarily want it, but they can make the WBC 154 belt available for that, or just whatever circumstance that guarantees that Errol is going to be in a position to fight for 154-pound title. Because I don't see him moving up. I know he has to move up, but he's not going to move up and not have anything at stake either. So, and there's no real guarantee that Jermell is going to move back down to the division. So if he is going to give up a belt, I certainly see him doing it for the sake of Errol Spence.
Yeah, I think after the fight, after Charlo Canelo fight, I think that's when everything's actually going to be able to materialize for us, because it's almost like we're in a holding pattern right now, because we don't know what's going to happen. If Jermell somehow beats Canelo, we know they're going to have a rematch. So that puts a Canelo Jermell fight on hold, and then what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's even if Mel were to win, that even becomes more tricky for Terence Crawford, because that's going to push the potential to actually get a Canelo fight way, way, way out. But speaking of Crawford, who do you want to see him fight at 47 if he doesn't? I get that you said it's more so Stanionis that would be the individual that's in place and should get the opportunity. But who would you like to see, and which one do you think would give him the biggest buzz out of the mandatories that he currently have at 47?
I think that's kind of the problem. I don't know, like when you mentioned Stanionis and Boots, those are by far his two toughest challenges. And obviously you reverse it. It'd be Boots and Stanionis in terms of who would have the better shot at beating him. I don't know if either one of them carries that type of buzz, though. Boots is finally now a main event fighter on Showtime. He made right moves to protect his future, knowing that he would get frozen out by a certain part of the industry. And I'm not saying like he's being frozen out by PBC or what. I'm just saying like if he wants to fight for a title and he's not getting that opportunity, he's in position to at least become champ. So I respect the business moves he's taken to provide a better future for himself and not get stuck, waiting for a handout, for the lack of a better term. But I just don't see him getting a Terence Crawford fight at 147. I know there's that history there too with Terence and Cameron Duncan. And I can see Terence, look, he's already holding all the receipts on PBC. Why is he going to give a Cameron Duncan fighter the biggest payday of his career, especially the guy that has the best shot of beating him? But Boots is still not, he has a long way to go marketability-wise too. I'm not saying it's a reason why he should. I absolutely want to see him fight Terence Crawford. I want to see Boots in far more significant fights. He deserves it. He's charismatic. The dude can fight his ass off. If you had to pick a guy that could be a pound-for-pound number one in 5 years, he'd have to be at the top of the list. I want to see him get the biggest fights possible. I just see him being a victim of the business of the sport. So I don't see him. I would love to see him in a position where he could build up his profile and take away those excuses from everyone. So I love that Showtime is in his corner, but you got to get him in the ring, a lot more often too.
Yep, that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
I just hate the holding pattern we're in right now with everything being held up right now again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, maybe it'll start moving a little bit to your point after the Canelo Charlo fight. That's what you got to hope.
Yeah, I hope that with Spence and Crawford, I do hope that there's that was the problem last year. There was no deadline, and those negotiations just dragged on for so long until Bud, did what he did. He kind of left everyone hanging. He went for David Avanesian, and everyone else was like, "Oh shit! Well, now we got 9 weeks to fill out the rest of the year because of this."
Yeah.
So after this, they learned that lesson this time. That there was a deadline for Spence to enforce the rematch clause. He did that. Now I hope there's a deadline to actually get that rematch over the line, or at least for everyone to realize, you know what? It's not happening this year. We got these dates. We absolutely have to deliver. Let's get all these other guys in the ring because PBC has a very, 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 very deep roster and a lot of guys who still have only fought once this year. Some guys who haven't fought at all this year. We still need to get Erislandy Lara and Danny Garcia back in the ring.
Yes.
Not that it's a blockbuster, but that's a fight that's been on hold literally all year, and a mandatory title is being held up because of it. So, but that's a fight, get that on the schedule. So like I said, a lot of moving parts that you got to figure out who's going to fight where, and it all depends on if Crawford Spence 2 is going to happen, and obviously if Tank is going to fight this year.
Yeah, I'm not even really. I mean, I watched the Laura and Danny fight. It's not a big. I mean, I don't like the fact that they're going to be fighting for the 160-pound belt at 155 catch weight. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
I don't like that, but I'll watch the fight just because we need to get stuff moving.
Yeah. I will say this: Lara is the champ, so if he agrees to it, that's on him. At least it's not like a vacant title fight like with Manny Pacquiao and Margarito decided they fought at 150 for the vacant WBO belt. At least Lara is the upgraded champ at this point. So if he decides to whatever way he wants to fight Danny Garcia to make that big payday, then it is fair game. But I'm with you. Yeah, like I said, it's a middleweight fight. Fight at middleweight. I'm with you.
Yeah, just come on, Danny.
But it's not a fight up a schedule either. It's that's a fight you should have gotten out of the way by now.
Yeah, totally definitely should have got that out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes no sense.
Jay, I'm looking at the chat section. I don't see any more questions. I think I done ran out, man. If we're not getting calls, we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. So, guys, let me know. Call us if you got questions or you got something on your mind. Yeah. It's a slow period, though, right now, man. I really do hope that that the Canelo and the Jermell Charlo one, just the energy picks up on it real soon, because man, it's just slow right now.
And they got a good undercard.
Yeah,
I like the undercard on.
That's probably the best undercard we've seen in quite a while. So it's not like revenge the rematches or stuff Don King. People go back to what Don King was doing, but he was doing that with Mike Tyson's money too. But no, I love the Jesus Ramos Erickson Lubin fight. I love the fact that the people on the opposite side were like, "Why is this guy taking that fight?" So that's a terrific co-feature. I'm very close to both camps too. I've been a day one Lubin guy. I've known him since the amateurs. Jesus Ramos is one of the brightest. He's another guy that just went from newcomer to contender like in the blink of an eye. It's like he didn't have that prospect period. So I love that fight. After that, that's my concern though. After September 30th, it's like there's a lot of content on the schedule, but like notoriety wise, it does really thin out up until we get to hopefully Haney Prograis, and like even like me as a fight junkie, I absolutely love the Bam Rodriguez Sonny Edwards fight. I know it's a big deal for the Zone, it's a big deal for Matchroom, but it's not like a fight that's gonna make the world take notice. It's a big fight for boxing.
Yeah.
So there's like we're really missing a lot of those elements. Like we kind of either need, Crawford Spence 2, Tank, or both, to be on that fourth quarter schedule, I think, to really pick things back up. Maybe Ryan Garcia fighting will help, but yeah, no, it is, man. There's a lot of content, but just nothing really moving the needle.
Yeah. For the fight that happened last night, I saw, what's your thoughts on Xander Zayas? I know I probably mispronounced his last name.
Xander Zayas. Yeah. No, he's, like I said, there's a massive upside to him. It just seemed like he's really gotten stuck from being like that advanced prospect to I'm not sure he's a full contender yet. Top Rank is going to move him to the point where he's absolutely going to be ready to become a contender. But like he's already outgrown 147. He's a very big 154 pounder. I'm kind of curious if he's going to land at middleweight by the time he's finally ready to fight for a title. Because he's still a few fights away. I think he's kind of run the mill of like the guys he should be beating. The guy he fought last night. I think he did better than what he was expected to do, but he was absolutely expected to win. So, but he is at the point he needs to be fighting like at least low contenders at this point, not guys.
Yo, what's up?
Something. Can you guys hear me?
Hello. I can. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, somebody. I'm sorry. We had a technical glitch there for a minute. Yeah, we got somebody called in, man. You on the Angry Man podcast? What's going on?
Yo, what's up? Hey, guys. It's Terrence.
Oh, Terrence, what's going on, guys? What's going on?
I had a couple of questions for the. Does that gentleman that you have on, does he work for PBC?
No, he works for BoxingScene.com.
Oh, okay, because it just sounded like it because he said some interesting things. Like he said that Tank, if this is his third fight, I've never heard of anything like this. If this is his third fight in a year, he can basically, I guess, fight a mailman, and that should satisfy everybody. Is that what he basically said?
So Canelo went over.
Is that what he? I'm saying, is that what he? I think that's what he was alluding to. That like he can fight anybody because it's the third fight, and then if he doesn't fight the mailman next year, he can fight a guy that he already beat and nobody wants to see a fight. Pitbull Cruz. I'm just saying, is that what I'm getting here? I'm getting a PBC vibe here. And then he said, I think the guy said, I mean, you guys didn't really say anything about this, but I think I have to bring this up. He said Canelo could fight Jermell Charlo. That'll be okay after he fights the other brother. That's okay, really? Benavidez out there, Morrell out there, Bud's out there, and that's okay.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah,
that's why I said that he worked for PVC because I mean that sounds like I don't know the average boxing fan feels that same way, but you guys didn't really challenge that, so that's how I had to come on here and challenge what the gentleman was saying because
let him respond. Let him respond. Go ahead, Jack.
All right.
Okay. So going back to Tank, I compare it to when Canelo fought when he went on his undisputed run. Because everyone knew he was going to eventually fight for the undisputed championship, we just accepted that Abney Yildirim fight, which was a complete garbage fight, right? But that was one of 3 fights he had in 2021 where he became, everyone was like, oh, he was fight of the year without question. Yet that was one of his fights on the calendar. So that's where I equated to where Tank, his first fight of 2023 was against Hector Garcia, undefeated. Granted, he moved up in weight, but he was undefeated and on the very short list of the fighters of the year for 2022. Then he went and fought Ryan Garcia after that. So those are his 2 fights of 2023. He's already had a full campaign by today's boxing standards. So if we get a guy like Tank, who is the biggest star in the sport right now, and as we've mentioned, the numbers we're seeing so far from where we believe Canelo Charlo is going to land, nothing that's going to happen on September 30th is going to supplant that. Tank is the biggest star in the sport right now. So he has those numbers. So if he decides he's going to have a time at 20,
Go ahead.
who he fights. I know other people do, But to me, it's a treat if we get a third fight out of Tank. If he fights in 2024, I said the absolute low point would be an Isaac Cruz rematch. That's like the lowest level fight he should be taking for his first fight in 2024. Getting back to Canelo and the Charlo brothers, I said I wanted to see him fight Jermell first, and then Jermell do what he had to do at 154, and then if Canelo beat Jermell move up and try to avenge that loss. I don't see anything gained if Jermell fights Canelo next year. Just to clarify on that. I am
So
not,
you were wrong,
I'm
Terrence.
not fighting anybody and then going straight into a Canelo fight after not having fought 3 years. I'm 100% not at all in favor of that. Is that clear?
Wait, so you said Hector Garcia was perceived as a fighter of the year. When was this? Hector Garcia, and then Ryan Garcia. Who did Ryan Garcia beat? That made. I mean, all we're talking about is numbers. Or are we talking about the talent, the competition right now? Because I'm really confused about how he beaten Hector Garcia. I don't remember anybody talking about him anywhere near as a fighter of the year. And then Ryan Garcia, who beat nobody, has no titles, nothing, being so great that we're able to say, oh, let's let him fight anybody. Okay, I mean, you got your opinion, I got mine, but we're going to agree to disagree on that fact. But I mean, I think the boxing world wants to see Tank fight somebody. I mean, everybody else is fighting somebody. You got Frank Martin, who's not fighting anybody. Why can't he fight? Why can't Tank fight that man? I mean, the guy that Shakur is about to fight the guy over in PBC. Why couldn't Tank fight the guy that Shakur about to fight? It's like Shakur is doing more work over there in the PBC than Tank is, and he got the fighters over there. But you guys don't criticize Tank at all for this. And in fact, praise him and say, because he fought Ryan Garcia and the fighter of the year that no one has talked about, Hector Garcia, that I've heard of, talk about him being the fighter of the year. Who did he beat to become the fighter of the year? I mean, this is just absolutely loony to me. But anyway, and then you said, then here's the other thing that I had to address. You said, well, Canelo has nothing to gain if he fights Bud Crawford. But here's the thing. The difference was that Bud said that he would fight Tank. He said at first, I don't have nothing to lose, to gain, yeah. But he said he'll do it. And then Canelo said he would fight Bud. Now, you guys are seemingly, if Canelo ducks Bud and doesn't, of course he's not going to fight Benavidez and he's not going to fight Morrell. We know that. So then when he ducks Bud, you guys are going to say, well, okay, because Bud said about Tank that he wouldn't benefit, so what? But he still said he'll fight him. So why would he get a pass for fighting Bud Crawford? This is
well, hold on. Can we
craziness?
Can we respond? So you're saying that we're giving Canelo a pass for not fighting Crawford.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. That he would get a pass for not fighting Crawford.
But he's not. Is Crawford is mandatory? Like there's nothing that's.
He's got to fight somebody. Don't you agree?
Yes, but he doesn't have to fight Terence Crawford.
If he fights Benavidez, I'm saying this. This is what I'm saying, Greg. If he fights Benavidez, fine, no problem. If he fights Morrell, fine, no problem. Even if he fights the guy that he lost to last time, I forgot his name, fine, no problem. But bro, he can't just fight anybody, another no name, and you guys just say it's okay. So I think Brad would probably be the best. That'd be the easiest fight for him that I will accept, but I'm assuming that you guys accept him fighting almost anybody.
No, so we've been critical. We've always been critical of Canelo Alvarez, so I'm not sure what you're talking about. But
the gentleman seems like he would be okay with him fighting anybody, I should say. And that's why I jumped on you and said, is this PBC? Is he working for PBC? Because it sounds like PBC, like he's a PBC spokesman. I'm just saying.
Man, he was just on here defending. I'm sorry, Jay.
I want to see Canelo fight is David Benavidez. I didn't even mention Morrell. I'd be fine with Morrell. But I specifically said that's the only fight left at 168 I want to see for Canelo.
Yeah, he was on here defending your man Shakur Stevenson. So how is he a PBC lover or defender or whatever it is you say he is? Like, what are you talking about?
I give him that much. Listen, I give him that much credit. He did say, because everybody knows Shakur is not ducking anybody. And then Frank, what can you say? There's no argument for Frank right now. Unless, of course, and that's the other thing I want to say. If Frank is telling the truth, basically, whatever that report was, where they just bargained for him, they negotiated for him, are we going to criticize man down if they did that? That seems like it's underhanded. That seems like the same stuff you call Bud on. Underhanded, low down.
Yeah, so let me
man down if they did that.
Let me answer that. Let me answer that. So we already did a video saying that we criticize Man Down Promotion if that's the case, and we side with Frank Martin. But you know something? I just realized, Terrence, you're a PBC hater. You must be Bob Arum's cousin.
No, I'm not.
Bro, everything you say is top ranked. Shakur's not ducking anybody. Frank Man Down, Al Heyman, whatever. Anything connected to PBC is like you got an issue with it. Now you coming on here accusing Jake of being a undercover PBC implanter or something. What are you talking about?
I was just saying that just sounded like the PBC playbook. Like when they come out here, I could be wrong. But I'm just saying, I just had to address that. That's it. I'm just saying, I want to see Canelo fight somebody. You got 3 people out there. Let them y'all gave him that big contract. Al Heyman, make him fight somebody. Make him earn that money. He can't fight bums. And the same thing with Tank. Fight somebody. Let's not keep making excuses for these guys. Shakur out here trying to fight everybody. Huh?
Should they fight a mandatory?
What about who fight a mandatory?
Should anyone fight mandatories? If they have a belt, should they fight their mandatories?
Absolutely. Okay, yeah, I know where you're going with it. Absolutely. And if Bud going to hang on to that belt, he going to beat the crap out of your boy. And then what y'all going to say? When he beat your boy,
he fought his mandatory. That's what I was saying. He fought his mandatory, which he said he always does.
He wasn't ready. He was too young. He was.
Hey, listen. I'm gonna have 3, 4, 5 excuses on deck, ready to go Sunday morning if he loses. Bro. How about that?
I'm sure you will. I'm sure. Yeah, all the people now talking about Boots because that's the only person they think can beat Bud. I'm sure they'll have their excuses.
No. I think Canelo beats Bud.
Yeah.
Really? How?
Yes, really.
How?
Man, have you seen Canelo fight?
Yes. Have you seen him fight lately?
Hey, we're gonna see what he looked like on September 30th.
Did you see the fight? Did you see when he fought Floyd? What happened?
Terence Crawford ain't Floyd. Terence Crawford ain't Floyd. That's number one. Number two.
They're close to Floyd.
Have you seen Terence Crawford? Have you seen Terence Crawford at 168 yet to know if he's gonna look like he looks at 147?
No, I haven't.
Okay, then. I don't know. I don't know how you that confident, bruh.
Nah, bruh. I don't like I said. If he goes to 168, he ain't gonna probably even come weighing in at 168. He don't need to. He can come in at 162, 163, have movement, and just outbox Canelo all night long.
You think he gonna just have you think he's just gonna have movement like that if he moving up to like even if he's coming in at 160, 162, yes. He's not gonna have that. Absolutely. He didn't have a movement against Errol. What are you talking about?
He ain't need it.
That's true.
He was going to knock Errol out.
Well, that's true.
You think he's going to stand in the pocket and fight Canelo? No, he's going to move around, outbox him, and come. You don't think? And
Canelo going to walk him down? He will get hit by Canelo. Canelo will walk him down.
Well, Bud got a little power, so
man. So Triple G.
I've seen Canelo hurt.
Triple G, we heard Bud. We saw Bud hurt we saw Bud hurt by 126 pounder.
We talking about how many years ago?
We talking about how many years ago? You still talking about Canelo? That was years ago.
Yeah, well, We seen him. I'm just saying we seen him, but hurt a lot of people. So I don't know if you want to just walk forward against Bud.
Oh god.
That's all I say. You might want to think
Let's go up to heavyweight and fight Deontay Wilder and Usyk and beat both of them in the same night. I got you, Terrence.
Bud beats everybody. Bud can go up and unify heavyweight. He beats everybody.
No, he can't beat Usyk, but Usyk isn't that good as y'all saw the last fight. Y'all give Usyk all this credit. Some people had him on the pound for pound list. Are you kidding me right now? Just like I've been saying, he is what I thought he was, and that's nothing. Usyk is not all that. He fights. I mean, Wilder would knock him out, bro. Now, he's from the PBC, and he would knock... Look, I'm an honest person. He'll knock Usyk out.
He's delusional.
Oh, I'm delusional.
Yeah, you're very delusional.
I mean, Deontay can knock anybody out, so that's not saying much.
Oh, he'll win the fight. I'm saying he would beat Usyk. How about that?
Okay.
All right.
Okay. All right, Terrence, man, what else you got to share with the people, man?
That's all I got to say. Just had to correct that. Thanks for having me on, guys.
I appreciate you, Terrence. Thank you for calling.
All right. Okay, welcome.
Later.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch the show that he.
Yeah.
It was a hell of a show.
Hey, Terrence always be taking stuff like he calls in every week. Sometimes he makes some good points. Other times he takes your points out of context, or he conflates them, or I don't know.
But it's out of context.
Yeah, but nah, man, he a good guy, man. He a good guy. Hey, man, phone lines are open, guys. Somebody in the comment section said Bud versus Wilder. Yeah, he beats Bivol. He beats Beterbiev. He beats Canelo. Who else is up there, Jay? Who's at cruiserweight? Okay, he beats Usyk. We got to jump straight to heavyweight. Fury.
He beats Badu Jack. He beats everybody.
He actually might be Badu Jack.
He beat Tyson Fury.
He might be Badu Jack. But I mean huh? What'd you say?
I might give him that too. Or Badu Jack. I might give him that.
All right, man, guys, there's nobody else calling in, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this show up. Once again, I want to say thank you guys for joining the show. We got 144 people in the building, 68 likes. Before you leave out the door, please hit the like button. It helps other people find this great content. I want to thank Jake for joining us. Like I said, we're going to try to get Jake on at least once a month to kind of give us these great updates that sometimes we don't have access to ourselves. And so we're very appreciative of that. Jake, anything you want to share with the people, your social media or anything like that? Your PBC email? Oh, we got somebody calling in.
Thank Al.
We'll take this last one. Hey, you're on the Angry Man podcast with Jason and Greg. What's going on with you?
Jason, how are you, brother?
What's going on?
This is John Mack.
Hey, man, what's going on with you?
Hey, I got a quick question, something to float by you. What do you think of this play? If Crawford agrees to fight Spence at any weight, as long as Al guarantees Canelo's next.
Canelo got to win his fight first.
And Canelo has to guarantee that.
Yeah, guaranteed. But if that plays out... Yeah. Crawford agrees to fight Spence at any weight he wants, and they guarantee Canelo's next. There's his 2 fights, swan song, and gone.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree with that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's a smart move for Crawford, because if he's planning to really go to 168, then he should fight Spence at 160 first.
Wouldn't be a bad idea to actually go up a little bit higher than 54. I agree with that.
Yeah. I just thought it was a smart business play, gets everybody's ship, sailing, and gets it all done.
Yeah. Now, I feel what you're saying. I mean, if they could guarantee Canelo Alvarez, which, of course, Canelo would have to agree to, and that's contingent upon Canelo winning on September 30th, then, I mean, I guess that would be fine. I don't know. I don't know why Al would necessarily be incentivized to do that, though, and I don't know why Canelo would be incentivized to do it. It's only.
I think it would be a big fight. I think it would pay. You know, you got, you know, the whole Mexican audience. You know, I think it would sell. It sells in my head, anyways, and I thought it was a good idea.
I think it would sell. I just don't think it. I don't know. I don't know it sell. Like, to me, based off what Canelo's going to end up getting, Jake, and you just tell me if you think about this in the same way, but I mean, he'd have to get a ridiculous split against Terence Crawford in order for the fight to be worth it, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And Canelo ain't giving up shit.
No.
Nope.
I figure Canelo gets $50 million a fight, so it's $50 million for Canelo, and whatever's left, Crawford has to take. I know that I don't see any negotiation at all. It's Canelo's show. You know, I don't know how Crawford's going to handle that, but that's the way it is. It's Canelo's way or the highway. But I would have to think, you know, if it's sold as good as, you know, I believe it would, because I think it would be a great fight if, you know, if it went down that you know, if Crawford got another $30 million, and then he got another $25 million to fight Spence again at whatever weight he wants. You know, it's a perfect plan for Crawford. It's a perfect plan for Spence. I don't know if it's a perfect plan for Canelo, but
it's an imperfect plan for PBC because they're not going to pay Terence Crawford $25 million again to fight Errol Spence.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it's probably going to undersell the rematch because it was a blowout. But
yeah, correct. Anything else you want to share with the people, bro?
No, it's good talking to you guys for once, and great show. You guys are blowing up, and I'm glad for it.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Have a great one.
All right, guys.
All right, later. Thank you. All right, I just want to acknowledge the super chat. Daryl Alexander, question for the panel: can you name a time in history when a fighter lost their titles and got a rematch and didn't want their belts back? I guess you're talking about Spence.
Yeah, I know there's been other examples. I know, like off the top of my head, Kelly Pavlik and Jermaine Taylor, they fought at super middleweight after their middleweight championship.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yep.
Yeah,
because I think Jermaine was having some challenges with making 160, if I'm not mistaken, and I think he may have used that as an excuse for the first fight, if I recall.
Yeah,
that he gassed out. Yeah.
Okay.
There's been other. That's one.
Gotcha. So yeah, Jake, do you want to share your PBC email or your or your social media real quick?
Yeah, I'm gonna change everything to thank Al Heyman at. That's the email. Now you can hit me Twitter at Jake in the Box, and then same thing at Instagram except with the underscore. I'm far more active. Well, I guess I should say on X, not on Twitter anymore.
Gotcha.
I say Twitter too.
It's always gonna be Twitter. Even these X updates keep popping up.
Facts. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate the time. Make sure you hit the like button on the way out. And until next time, peace.
Peace.
Yeah, I was glad.